If I told you there was a television show with crazy rules? The rules required you to shock an innocent person with high-voltage electricity. You shock them until they screamed and lost consciousness. Tell me honestly, would you actually press that button? What is truly terrifying is that this wasn't just a psychological concept. It was an actual, fully funded televised broadcast. The results showed that 80% of ordinary people participated. Under the bright gaze of studio cameras, they pressed that killing button. They did it simply because a television host told them to. We treat reality television as a harmless, guilty pleasure. We sit on our couches, eating snacks, watching ordinary people embarrass themselves. They do it for a brief moment of fame and a cash prize. But the terrifying truth is that reality TV is a psychological meat grinder. To keep viewers addicted, networks constantly push the boundaries of human morality. They completely ignore ethics and physical safety for ratings, turning entertainment into a highly profitable, televised blood sport. Today, we are opening the sealed archives of banned television, exposing the horrifying moments when reality shows crossed the line into torture, moments of total psychological collapse and actual murder. Our descent into this broadcasted nightmare begins with that electrocution experiment. In 2010, French television aired a deeply controversial program titled The Game of Death. Contestants believed they were participating in a standard, glamorous game show. A smiling host instructed them to administer electric shocks to a man. They shocked the man in a box for answering questions incorrectly. As the voltage increased, the man begged for his life and screamed. He screamed in agony and eventually went completely, chillingly silent. The contestants were visibly distressed, crying and violently trembling. Yet, an astonishing 80% of them pulled the lever anyway. They delivered what they believed was a lethal 460-volt execution. The man in the box was an actor, obviously, but the contestants' willingness to murder him was entirely real. It is like being handed a loaded gun at a cheap carnival. You pull the trigger just because the mascot says it is a game. The show proved a very sickening sociological truth about us. The glittering authority of a television camera effortlessly strips away human empathy. It turns average citizens into mindless, compliant executioners. Plunging into level 2, the cruelty shifts from adult obedience. It shifts to the outright, systemic exploitation of innocent children. In 2007, a major U.S. network launched a reality show called Kid Nation. The core premise of the show was wildly irresponsible. Take 40 children, drop them into an abandoned ghost town in the desert, remove all the adults, and film them trying to build a society. It was a dystopian nightmare packaged as primetime family entertainment. The actual results were an immediate and traumatizing disaster. Children were subjected to grueling physical labor and extreme weather. They also faced severe psychological bullying from each other. In one horrifying incident, unsupervised kids accidentally drank liquid bleach. In another, a child had their face burned with boiling hot grease. It happened while they were desperately trying to cook a meal. It is like giving third graders the keys to a nuclear power plant and placing bets on how fast it will completely melt down. The studio essentially ran a Stanford prison experiment with 8-year-olds, completely crossing the ethical bottom line of modern television broadcasting. Facing massive public boycotts and child abuse investigations, it was permanently canceled. As we descend to level 3, the manufactured danger breaks the fourth wall. It resulted in a literal and fiery massacre on screen. In 2015, a French survival reality show called Dropped began filming. They took elite celebrity athletes and securely blindfolded them, planning to abandon them in incredibly harsh wilderness environments to get the most dramatic, cinematic opening shots possible. The production employed 2 helicopters, flying in terrifyingly close proximity. They flew right over the jagged mountains of Argentina. But this wasn't a highly controlled, synchronized movie set. It was a reckless, greedy pursuit of television ratings. The helicopters collided mid-air, plummeting to the ground in a fireball. 10 people were instantly killed in the catastrophic crash. It included 3 beloved French Olympic athletes and the production crew. They died not from natural hazards or the harsh wilderness. They died from the arrogant hubris of reality TV directors. Directors pushed the limit just for a cooler camera angle. It is like throwing Olympic champions into a gladiator arena blindfolded. They did it simply to sell cheap commercial breaks to audiences. The show was immediately and permanently banned from the air. It transformed from an adventure series into a multi-million-dollar crime scene. The final bedrock of this reality television, purgatory, reveals a dark truth. A network's desperate hunger for dramatic personalities has a steep cost. They accidentally invited a literal monster into the family living room. In 2009, VH1 was the absolute king of trashy dating shows. They cast a charismatic, wealthy contestant named Ryan Jenkins in 2 shows. He starred in Megan Wants a Millionaire and I Love Money 3. Jenkins was presented as a charming and eccentric romantic. But right after filming wrapped, Jenkins violently murdered his wife. He mutilated her body and stuffed her remains into a suitcase. He threw it into a dumpster before fleeing the country, and then he chickened out and ended up hanging himself. Network executives were horrified to discover their rigorous checks failed. The psychological background checks were a complete and dangerous illusion. They had unknowingly cast a violent and sadistic psychopath, and they made him a prime-time television star. It is like inviting a literal wolf to a family dinner party, handing him a carving knife, and locking the front doors. The network immediately scrubbed both of the shows from existence. They destroyed the footage and permanently locked the completed seasons away. They hid them in a vault to avoid massive legal backlash. We sit in the dark and laugh at trashy reality television, blindly assuming that the legal contracts and waivers guarantee our safety. But these permanently banned shows expose a rotting, uncomfortable truth.